I witnessed over years of working in pharmacy just how little people were getting better. Actually, not at all. They weren't getting better at all. I actually remember being in a class in pharmacy school as I was like starting to get into nutrition. And I'm like reading these nutrition articles curing disease from food. And I was like, oh, shoot, I think I just went into the wrong career. Like I should have gone into nutrition.
Oops.
But I was like, it's too late to turn back now. Like I'm going to finish this degree. There's such a beautiful thing that happens where I get to actually listen to the person in front of me and then look at the data of the labs, and everything is telling the same story. And that helps us guide into a direction of clarity of where to go for someone to achieve what they want with their health.
Hi, Robert Hartline here with the Music City Work Club. And this is a member spotlight with Monica, former pharmacist.
Yeah.
And now entrepreneur. How does one go from sitting in a pharmacy, I guess, taking orders and then filling pill bottles to like recognizing that you're actually an entrepreneur?
Well, it didn't happen directly like that, not linear, I guess. I still, identify as a pharmacist. I'm still a licensed pharmacist, and I lead with that in a lot of ways. But how I got there was through my own personal journey, first starting with like my own health crisis that happened while I was still working as a full-time pharmacist. But before my own health crisis, I was obviously, everybody that comes to the pharmacy, nobody wants to be at the pharmacy, right? Like coming to get a prescription. It's for a condition, 100% of the time. So I witnessed over years of working in pharmacy just how little people were getting better. Actually, not at all. They weren't getting better at all. And I would, in community or what's known as retail pharmacy, like you get to know people over a long time span. Like you could be at the same pharmacy for years, right? So you get to really like build relationships with people. And it was just month after month, year after year of never seeing anybody get better. And then I fell into my own health crisis. And that was what really allowed me to experience what it was like to be on both sides of the counter at a pharmacy. And from there is what led me into building what is now Full Body Pharmacy.
So can you talk about your health journey? What was that for you?
Yeah. So it started with gut symptoms is how that started. And I was 25 years old, like in my second year of working as a pharmacist. And all of a sudden I'm starting to have physical symptoms that started in the gut for the first time ever in my life. Like I was not a kid that went to the doctor a lot. I didn't have already pre-existing stuff. This was like brand new symptoms. And so just general gut symptoms that led me into saying, okay, I guess I really need to go see a doctor. From my own time, like from what I knew as a pharmacist in that season, I knew that I didn't want to go to a traditional or conventional doctor because I already knew the prescriptions that I would get from them from the visit, like just because because I'm on the other side of that counter. So I went to what is popularly known as a functional medicine doctor, which means they're people who kind of like you spend more time in the appointment. They ask you a series of questions that get you to the root cause of why you're having the symptoms in the first place. And from there, that gave me enough information of them running a few blood tests to say, okay, you have something called Candida, which is like this overgrowth of an unhealthy bacteria in the gut. Okay, so I started doing all the like dietary changes, blah, blah, blah. And like so many people I see now, it was my own journey of like, I tried a million different protocols of what it felt like. I tried every single diet. It would work for a few months, 1 year, and then I would go back to having the symptoms even worse than how I had them before. And so going on years of these symptoms, and then things started compounding. And I later ended up over years having what would look like autoimmune disease, even though my lab work was coming back, quote unquote, normal. All of my symptoms pointed towards having some type of autoimmune disease. And that was affecting like my skin, my hair, my mental health. I couldn't focus anymore. The gut stuff, like I said, got 5 times worse. And it was through that whole process of experiencing it and finding the things that helped along the way that have built the tools that now lead into helping other people who are going through a similar experience.
So what was the solve?
Oh man, that's a tough, that's a whole thing, podcast in and of itself. But what ended up being the thing that solved it all, and I don't take that with a grain of salt, of being the word all, is addressing my health from all aspects of health. So not just the physical, not just mental, not just emotional, but then incorporating even spiritual health. So it wasn't until I started addressing my health in all those 4 areas that things actually started to heal and come together, started to heal. And that's a message that I tell people a lot now from that experience, is that like I was the person who was doing, had been going to therapy for years at this point when I'm like having the worst physical flare-ups of my life. Like I had already been doing a lot of what people would consider like that baseline work on yourself. I was going into understanding my emotional health and being more emotionally intelligent, and yet still my body was so sick. And it really wasn't until I started addressing, my body, like baseline things of the body, like I needed to move. That's like one big aspect of my story. I know it sounds silly at first, but like I said, I was at this point where like I was doing mental, emotional, spiritual, and leaving kind of my body behind, like and not moving it in a way that supported my nervous system. And over years that created like so much stiffness in the body, naturally so. And so like it wasn't until I found the right modality that was very slow. It was doing the work slow is a big answer to your question. Doing the work slow in all 4 areas is when I was beginning to start the major healing process.
And so when was the moment you were like, wait a minute, the way I'm helping people in the pharmacy is not what I want to help people with anymore? And where did you probably had an indication that, you know what, if all these people keep coming back with the same prescriptions and they haven't changed anything, maybe they're not doing it right. So am I involved in the same process, right?
Yeah, exactly. That moment came from my own rock bottom of actually being like, okay, I'm not coming back to this building again. But even before that, though, before I go into that, I honestly realized this from almost day one of me graduating pharmacy school and going into community pharmacy. I actually remember being in a class in pharmacy school as I was like starting to get into nutrition. And I'm like reading these nutrition articles, curing disease from food. And I was like, oh, shoot, I think I just went into the wrong career. Like I should have gone into,
Oops. Oops. How long is pharmacy school?
It's in total a 6-year program,
Wow.
like undergrad to doctorate degree. And I remember it being like my second to last year, and I was like, oh, shoot. But I was like, it's too late to turn back now, like I'm going to finish this degree. But it started then, and then going into actually working gave me the experience of like, hold on. I remember one of the earliest thoughts was like, I'm seeing this medication a lot, like I'm dispensing this particular medication a lot, but I was taught in school that it was supposed to be used in like rare cases of like after you've tried 10 things, like you use this because it has a bad side effect profile. And here I am seeing it like all the time in different categories of medication. And I was like, there's this incongruence of what I was taught to how we're using medication. And that was one of the first connecting points of like, we're really overusing medication. Like I got to see this firsthand, not just like reading it in American statistics. And so from that, I saw that over years. And then it took my own rock bottom where like I was what I was referencing before in the season of being so physically unwell, I wasn't able to show up to my job the way I once could. Like I just couldn't even physically stand, for that many hours, for example. I couldn't keep my mind engaged for that many hours. And I ended up having to take a medical leave of absence from work from that rock bottom so that I could take time off to recover, honestly.
So take us up to this moment now. So you started your own practice, and who are the types of people you gravitate to help?
So the type of people I that gravitate to me, actually, I'd rather say it that way, is the ones who like we've been through each other's experiences. Like I've been through what they're currently living, and what that is a complete state of nervous system dysregulation. Like there's so many symptoms, of course, that fall under what we say when we say nervous system dysregulation, but the main one being like you just can't operate in your life anymore. Like I was describing myself, like trying to still be an employee 40 hours a week. Like you just don't have capacity for anything in your life that you once did or the things that you want in life. There's a physical, mental, emotional barrier to being able to do what you want. And it's those people who are kind of feel stuck in that loop of like wanting a life that they feel like they can never have because they are feeling so sick in these areas of life. Those are the people I work with, the ones that feel like there's no way out. They've already been to 1 million doctors, 1 million specialists, and they can't see a way out. And they're just being prescribed one medication after the next from each of those people they've already gone to see, and nothing has helped. Similar to my story of like, something works until it doesn't. That person who's been through that, I don't know, dozens of times and are really ready to give up, that's the person I work with.
And so what does it look like? What's the customer journey from meeting with you and the outcome? What's the process you take them through?
Yeah. So we start off with something called a second opinion session. It's a free consultation. That's the initial. I sit down with you, we get to know each other, see if we're even a good fit for each other to work together. And I call it a second opinion session because I want you to come with the most updated labs you've had and all your medical experiences up until you've met me. And I can start to look at that and say, okay, this is like the common denominator I'm seeing amongst every symptom you've told me, all the feedback you've gotten so far. And I want to show you what's the underlying root cause of everything you're telling me. And then give you a clear direction of like, okay, with that baseline of where you're at, let's see where we can go now. What's your health goal? Let me give you a direction of where we go from there. If we're a good match, then we go right into what my program is called the Full Script program. And it's either 6 or 12 months. And I noticed that I can't work with anybody less than 6 months because that 6-month mark is when the changes begin. Right around like starting at the 6-month point is when the changes that we've tried to make start. And that's why I take the health journey with you. Like I'm here just holding a lantern in front of like guiding you where to go. And so we initially all of that starts with lab work ahead of time before we even sit down together. So I get to look at that, plus your intake form, plus what you're telling me from our initial the initial consultation is a 2-hour session where I get to hear your whole life story and health history and really begin to paint a picture here of how all the areas of your life are saying the same message. And there's such a beautiful thing that happens where I get to actually listen to the person in front of me and then look at the data of the labs, and everything is telling the same story. And that helps us guide into a direction of clarity of where to go for someone to achieve what they want with their health.
And I know a lot of people, these are habit changes and behavior changes. How do you talk to someone and get them to make the changes for their health?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It takes a lot of me getting to know the person. And I think that's what the experience, right, that most of us miss. And the doctor, like you can't get to know a person in 15 minutes or less, And so it takes a lot of time that I get to know them first. And from there, it's then, honestly, Robert, the first thing that people need to hear from me to get them to start making any sort of change is that everything that has happened to them up until this point, most of it is not their fault. And that right there ends up changing. That's the beginning of the mindset change that happens in them, because most of the reason why people can't make the initial changes that we think are like basic, like stop eating fast food, like even that, like the most of the reason people can't make that change is because they're stuck in the guilt shame loop in their head about going to eat the fast food. So if I can before the thought of what am I going to eat, there's a thought that happens before that, and it's usually emotionally tied. So we spend the first couple of months and a lot of the conversation honestly just talking about that emotional loop pattern. How do we get you out of that emotional thought pattern loop that's happening that then makes you make all these negative, nutrition and lifestyle choices? So we start there for the person to then understand and be reflected to of like, a lot of what has happened is not your fault. and now let's make a change together. And that's usually where we begin.
Yeah, I mean, a quick story. I think I even told you this story. I've had two people in my life who had quadruple bypass surgery. My best friend, when I was in my 20s, he was in his 40s. He had just turned 40, and he had quadruple bypass. Like, who has that when they're 40, right? And at the end of the surgery, the doctor came into the room. I was there, and he was like, "Pedro, you good? Surgery went great. See ya." That was the conversation. He was dead in 10 years. Next was my father-in-law. The exact same story, exact same experience, and dead 13 years after. And if you look at all the data behind quadruple bypass surgery, unless there's a major dietary health transition, the surgery works for a period of time, and it has an expiration date. And they just look at, getting that person through the system in fast as humanly possible. And I've told this story to multiple doctors, and I said, who's a better doctor? A doctor who will sit with the patient and knows the science of the procedures, the skill set of being a great doctor, or a doctor who's good at selling behavior change. Tell me which is a better doctor. And you know what they always tell me? They always go with the skills of being a doctor. And I'm like, I don't think you heard what I was saying. If your oath is to keep them living longer, to really do health, it seems to me you should throw the other things away and just get focused really good at having a conversation. It feels like to me, I'm just like speaking because I don't know anything about health. It seems to me that if they could get really good at having 15-minute conversations to scare the pants off someone, wouldn't that be better than, if you're only going to have 15 minutes, then get good at selling in 15 minutes. I don't know if it's showing a bunch of gravestones of past patients who decided not to take their health seriously and be like, hey, this was George. He was just like you. 10 years ago, he's like, blah, blah, blah. And, he's dead. Okay, here's another one. Here's George, just like you. He decided not to make a change. He's dead. And then go, okay, what would you like to do? Would you like to change? Do you need to get your family in here and hear this conversation? Because they're going to be in the room when you're sitting there and saying, oh, it's too hard to change my diet. It's too hard to stop smoking. It's hard, and I don't know the answer to that. But it seems to me like there is no incentives. There is no in traditional healthcare.
No, you honestly make a really good point of and this is why I don't put down conventional medicine, because if God forbid I get in a car accident and my bones are in all directions they shouldn't be, please give me freaking morphine and don't let me move.
And
you know
set
what I'm
everything
saying?
right. And
exactly.
Then put me back together.
Exactly. I'm not against conventional medicine by any means. It is phenomenal when it comes to acute and emergency care. There is nothing like it. Okay. There is nothing else like it. But exactly to your point, what keeps the current model of healthcare that we know now going is keeping patients in this survival state that you just named so beautifully in that story of notice how all the doctor is concerned with is getting the patient to survive. Well, to your point, yes, we have to do that first. Like I said, if I get in a car accident, please help me to survive first. But then how do I get myself into thriving and into living normally and healthy? And like you said, that's not what's addressed. It's just keeping them in survival. And that's what medications do as well. When we're just giving you a medication to treat the symptom of high blood pressure, you have high blood pressure, here is a pill to lower the high blood pressure, and nobody's asking, well, why do you have high blood pressure in the first place? Then that pill just becomes another tool to somebody to keep you in survival. And that is honestly one of the biggest reasons for what I witnessed and for my own life of where my own nervous system dysregulation happened and crashed because I was in survival for God knows how many years. And that's what I realized I was just witnessing with everybody else. And like you said, where's the long-term sustainable solution to living?
Yeah.
Like, and that's why I'm like, I have to be a part of whatever that is. I look around, I don't see anybody around, definitely not pharmacists. There are a few functional medicine doctors, but so many people who are like medication experts, like are so locked into that loop that we're just talking about. And I'm like, I can't witness this anymore. Like,
I would venture to say, though, your health journey had, and this is why I want to do this work in the work club, because I would venture to say, and I may be speaking out of the right-hand side of my mouth, but is a lot of this journey was you were doing something you didn't want to do. And you had invested so much time and energy and resources and expense and school and all this stuff, and you've gotten yourself locked into this corner, and you're like, I guess this is what I'm going to be doing. Maybe it'll get better next year, and then it'll get better next year. And then your health is directly tied to what you do.
100%.
And if you don't do something that you really love, I don't believe you get the internal pharmacy medicine, because you get medicine doing the things you do that you love. If you don't have that avenue, then you don't get that feel-good medicine that's inside of you that heals all those other things.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, the hormone that's being produced unhealthily in the workplace that I was in, cortisol, is what was making me sick.
Yeah.
Part of what was making me sick. Like me getting to the rock bottom and leaving my job wasn't the only thing that I had to do to heal myself, but it was definitely on the list of you must not come back and do something different, because exactly to your point, I couldn't be healthy in that space.
Well, I always say people, because there's these two things that we're trying to do out of the club that I'm trying to do is like do the work that you love with those that you love. And if you work at a workplace where you actually like the people, but you hate the work, it counts as you get zero. Like you have a positive and a negative is a zero. So it's really a journey of being in both of them that the power of healing can happen. And I would venture to say, by spending 2 hours with somebody, you can suss out, if they're having the Sunday blues before they go into work the next day, there's an indication.
Exactly.
That's an opportunity. So, there's a lot of different areas for them to have awareness of and start to make actual real change. And so how would someone reach out to you and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. My website and Instagram name are both Full Body Pharmacy. So feel free you can just Google that. You'll find that. I'm also recently on TikTok at Functional Pharm, PHARM. And you can also find me on the directory here at Music City Work Club. And feel free to contact me from any of those spaces. And I'd be happy to connect with you for a second opinion session to see if we're a good fit.
Monica, thank you so much for being a member, and thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Awesome. So listen, if you're an entrepreneur or you're a creator or you're someone who is maybe working in a job you don't really like, but you need a place to work, maybe you come here and hang out with other people that are making powerful decisions to change their lives by doing the things they love with those that they love, and being in a community, other driven people that are getting it done and doing something different, something new. So guess what? You don't have to keep doing what you're doing. You can stop. You can do something else. You can be in a community that you can find some support and a place to also do wellness. If you're interested in learning more, visit musiccityworkclub.com. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week.